Now, I know you may have questions at the end with regard to the 2 or 3 homicides that we've had over the last 24 hours. I will talk to you about that after the Attorney General is finished the news conference. But now I'd like to introduce to you Attorney General John Hoffman. General.
Good morning, folks. Afternoon. Thank you for coming. We're here today to announce the takedown of a massive, violent, and long-running narcotics ring with ties to Mexican drug cartels that was dealing millions of dollars a year in heroin and cocaine on the streets of North Camden. We have charged 47 individuals with first-degree racketeering, including 3 alleged leaders of this drug ring, all brothers, Omar Urbina and his brothers Edward and Edwin Urbina. This criminal syndicate, headed by the Urbinas, allegedly controlled the open-air drug markets emanating in North Camden in the from 4th and York Street. They exercised their control through intimidation and violence. And today, we are putting an end to their reign. As of this point, we have arrested 34 of the 47 individuals. The rest are being sought as we speak. Omar and Edwin Urbina were arrested last Friday on charges that include leading a narcotics trafficking network, a first-degree crime that carries a sentence of 25 years to life in prison. The 2 brothers are being held in the Camden County Jail with bail set at $1 million for each of them. The 3rd brother, Edward Urbina, is being sought on a warrant charging him with first-degree racketeering, as well as conspiracy to distribute illegal narcotics and substantive counts of illegal narcotics distribution. Omar Urbina lives in Philadelphia. Edward lives in Pennsauken, and Edward lives in Camden, and Edwin Urbina lives in Pennsauken. I want to take a second and thank Prosecutor Faulk, with whom the Attorney General's office has an excellent partnership. Also with us are Director Ellie Honig of the Division of Criminal Justice and representatives of some of the other law enforcement partners that assisted in this operation, including Assistant Chief Mike Lynch of the Camden County Police Department and Mike Cavallaro, the resident agent in charge of Homeland Security investigations in Cherry Hill. Again, all 47 targets are charged with first-degree racketeering for their roles in this violent network. First-degree racketeering carries a sentence of 10 to 20 years in state prison. That's a minimum 10-year sentence for all 47 charged individuals. All of these targets also face additional conspiracy as well as drug distribution charges. 7 arrests of the higher-level members of this narcotics network were made this past Friday and this past Monday, and the remaining arrests were made this morning, when a multi-agency team of officers fanned out across Camden before dawn. I want to take a second and commend everyone involved for their professionalism and their courage in executing both search and arrest warrants, which included arresting a number of individuals with very violent criminal records and/or known ties and associations to street criminal gangs. These arrests are a result of what we have deemed Operation North Pole, a 9-month investigation by the Division of Criminal Justice's Gangs and Organized Crimes Bureau. The division received significant, tangible investigative assistance throughout this operation from the Camden County Police Department, the Camden County Sheriff's Office, the Pennsauken Police Department, and the United States Homeland Security Investigations. Numerous other agencies were involved with the arrests, and I'll mention a number of them later. This multi-million-dollar narcotics syndicate, headed by members of the Urbina family, allegedly has operated in North Camden for a number of years, pushing its poison to countless young users and ruling its turf with intimidation and with violence. Through Operation North Pole, we are putting an immediate and definitive end to this criminal dynasty and making the community safer for the good and deserving families who live there. This highly organized network, led by the Urbina brothers, allegedly sold hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in heroin and cocaine in the area that includes 3rd and 4th Streets and Bailey, Erie, and Byron Streets in North Camden, as well as a number of other locations. Associates of this criminal enterprise allegedly rented blocks or street corners from the Urbina family, allowing them to sell drugs in those areas. In return, the Urbinas provided drugs, and they provided protection to what we would refer to as the tenants of these street corners. The 3 brothers allegedly relied on multiple suppliers who obtained heroin and cocaine from Mexican drug cartels. We have charged 3 alleged suppliers, all of whom are residents of Camden: Rigo Bello, Carlos Gonzalez, and Danny Borges. As of now, all 3 are currently fugitives. While arresting top members of this drug network last Friday and into today, investigators executed 13 search warrants, resulting in the seizures of more than $218,000 in cash, 6 guns, and a half a dozen ounces of cocaine and heroin. In addition, 11 vehicles were seized. The Urbina family and its associates have kept their criminal stranglehold on this northernmost section of Camden for far too long. And today, we have released their poisonous vice grip on North Camden. The bails that have been set for the defendants range from $100,000 to $1 million, and all of the defendants will face mandatory bail source hearings in order to ensure that they cannot use dirty money to secure their freedom. We vow to prosecute the Urbina brothers and this entire criminal syndicate to the fullest extent of the law. It is through collaborative efforts and collaborative strategic investigations such as this one that we can best target and dismantle large-scale, violent criminal enterprises. We know, and the residents of Camden certainly know, that where there is drug dealing, there is rampant violence. Through operations such as this one, we are working to take drug dealers off the streets and reduce the paralytic violence plaguing the streets of Camden and all of its neighborhoods. We know the devastating impact that crime has on cities like Camden, and we cannot rest until we stop the cycle of violence that is luring Camden's young people with the false glamour of a gangster's life, a life that inevitably leads to far too many maimed or killed, where only the quote-unquote lucky ones avoid death and end up in prison. We cannot and we will not stop until parents can sit on their stoops and send their children to school or to a neighbor's house to play without worrying about hearing gunfire in the air. We will continue to use our enhanced intelligence gathering to identify the gangs and other criminal networks that are bringing drugs, guns, and violence into the streets of Camden. And we will continue to join with our law enforcement partners to take down these criminal networks by putting their leaders and their most violent members behind bars for a long, long time. That is our commitment to the people of Camden. That is my commitment to the people of Camden. They deserve no less. I want to acknowledge a few of the people most responsible for the success of this operation. Some of them are here with me today. From the Division of Criminal Justice, Gangs and Organized Crime Bureau, I want to thank case detectives for Operation North Pole, Pepe Bichette and Brian Woolston, along with their supervisor, Lieutenant Richard Carlin. I also want to thank the lead attorneys on this case, Deputy Attorney Generals Darrell Richardson and Andrew Johns, who were supervised by Deputy Attorney General Lauren DeFantis and Deputy Attorney General Kristen Harburg. I want to commend the many other detectives and attorneys who assisted in the investigation and the prosecution of this case, along with the groups I mentioned before who provided significant material, tangible collaboration to the investigation of this case. I want to thank the following agencies for assisting us in making the arrests this morning and last week: the FBI, Cherry Hill and Philadelphia offices, the DEA, Camden High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Task Force, the United States Marshal Service, the United States Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the New Jersey State Police, the New Jersey State Parole Board, the Camden County Prosecutor's Office, the Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office, the Cherry Hill Police Department, the Gloucester Township Police Department, the Gloucester City Police Department, and Evesham Township Police Department. And of course, I want to commend Director Honig for his leadership throughout this operation. Director Honig, you continue to do a fantastic job as the Director of the Division of Criminal Justice. Everyone on this case truly did an outstanding job. This is a massive operation. This is a violent group of people with ties to the Mexican drug cartels. We are doing, as I said before, everything we can to get to the root of the problem. We are not nipping at the bud. We are not just trying to deal with people on street corners. We are trying to take time to dig in and to investigate these cases so we can uproot the worst offenders and really deal with where the problem is. Everyone behind me deserves an incredible debt of gratitude. And we will continue to fight this fight. It is a difficult one. It will last into the future, and we simply will not stop. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Can you describe to us how you believe the Urbinas used violence to enforce the rules of their operations? Were people shot, were people beat up, were they threatened?
You know, there's a very tangible, quick answer to your question. We recovered a half a dozen guns in the search warrants that were there. So it answers your question, how do you think they were using violence to enforce their methods? There was a lot of firearms that were recovered, and I wouldn't be surprised if more were recovered in the coming days. We certainly have additional intelligence as to how intimidation and violence was used. I can't go into much of that right now, but suffice it to say, we are confident that there was a lot of intimidation and a lot of violence were used. Leaders of massive drug organizations do not keep 47 people intact and in tow with theirs.
I'm just kind of curious if you wouldn't mind telling us in terms of the names of the cartels and where are they based in Mexico?
Yeah, as far as the international drug cartels in Mexico go, some of that is ongoing investigation and some of that is a little bit of sensitive information. I really don't want to get into right now what cartels that we're talking about in Mexico.
At this vacuum on the streets of North Camden, any concern about violence as new dealers come in to establish themselves?
You know, there is always a displacement concern. We try and look at this from a multi-dimensional perspective, taking into consideration the displacement and what we can do. In some of the prior comprehensive drug busts that we have had in Camden, some of the ones that were down in South Camden, I believe it was Operation Citywide and Operation Billboard. We took some time to figure out how to avoid that displacement from occurring, and we're very successful in that regard. We intend to use many of the same efforts. Is there a concern that there will be displacement? Yes. Are we taking that into consideration and trying to avoid that and trying to make sure that we are getting to the root of the problem and cleaning up these neighborhoods? Absolutely.
Can you discuss the tactics or the plans?
You know, some of those, if I were to tell you what we are going to do in the next coming days out on the streets of Camden, it probably wouldn't be the wisest thing to do, but suffice it to say, we're going to do the same things that were successful in a number of the comprehensive drug busts that we did in South Camden. I'm sorry, you had a question?
No, they have the same question that I asked.
Okay.
Any ties to any murders or anything like that coming up for this?
You know, that is an area of investigation that is certainly ongoing. The investigative aspect of these cases does not end when these people are taken off the streets.
I'm just kind of curious about some context for this. I mean, has this sort of operation happened before in Camden? Have you had instances where there's been connections to Mexican cartels? And the second thing, could you sort of put Camden in context in terms of the heroin sales and traffic in the South Jersey region?
Yeah, you know, Camden as a significant city with easily accessible transit, unfortunately attracts a fair number of users that come into the city. It's a fairly easy city to get in and out of, especially when you're talking about people coming in and out of Philadelphia as well. So if you think about this in terms of numbers, you know, we were looking at a group. Now, these are sort of extrapolations and some estimates, but we're looking at a set that we think was dealing close to $50,000 worth of heroin and cocaine a day. and hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, probably approaching $1 million for a month. And as I said before, those are really some estimates and some extrapolations, but that gives you a sense of how massive a group this was. 47 people, all with a first-degree racketeering charge. That is a big drug set.
How much real estate did they control? How many blocks in North Camden?
You know, it was centered basically on 4th and York. It emanated out from 4th and York. Probably, I would say about, there's no complete defined target. I would say probably about a 6 square block area. Maybe a little smaller than that. I'm looking behind me at the people that might have a little bit more accurate information, but about a 6 square block area.
That general area has had quite a few homicides this year. Is there any expectation these guys were linked in any way?
You know, we have discussed a little bit about that before, to the degree to which that those homicides are ongoing investigations, and that we're trying to get intelligence and information from those people. I can't really comment anymore, considering that those homicides are ongoing investigations. It wouldn't really be appropriate or prudent for me to do so.
And in terms of previous operations like this, have you seen this sort of operation before in terms of the ties to the Mexican cartels?
We have seen ties to Mexican cartels before. Yes, there certainly is, especially when you're dealing with heroin and cocaine, certainly going to be, international ties abroad. I will tell you, this is one that we spend a lot of time in trying to dig down into where the supply was. And so we probably are in a little bit of a better spot than we have in the past as to knowing as to where the supply is and looking to continue this investigation into those areas, but certainly there are ties to Mexican and other South American cartels in other cases, yes.
All these guys are from Mexico or from another country, and what is the status, the legal status from them?
Well, many of them are right from Camden, and so I would not say that they all necessarily have a Mexican derivation. I mean, many of them are Camden. Some are residents, some are illegals. I don't have that breakdown. I do believe that the 3 Urbina brothers are all legal citizens of the United States. Yes.
Is there any sense of where this ranks as far as busts? Is it the largest this year, the largest in several years, or anything like that?
You know, I don't have the exact answer to that. But knowing what I know, I would say it's one of the largest we've done in probably the last 5 years. And behind me again, with people that have been here longer, actually, than I have, to help answer that question. But I'm getting the nod that, yeah, it's one of the largest in probably the last 5 years that we've done. 47 individuals on first-degree racketeering charges is a huge bust. And if you look at the numbers, look at the, close to $250,000 seized just on one day. Look at the amounts that we thought that they were dealing, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, millions of dollars a year. It's a big group. And there are a lot of, certainly a lot of users. I remember I did a ride around with Chief Thompson a while ago when we were in this area. When we were riding around, you could see people coming in from the transit centers and just walking in to this area, and stopped to talk to a couple of them, the chief did, to ask them what they were doing and to send them back to where they came from. It was clear they didn't belong here and they were just wandering around. It was clear that people were coming in of some of the mass transit areas and accessing this spot in particular.
I'm just curious, I mean, as to how were the drugs transported from Mexico?
You know, as I said before, the investigation is continuing into the sources of supply, and so I'd frankly rather not get into any of the more information we have with regard to that, because that really is an area that will continue.
Do you think there might be more suppliers other than just the 3?
I think that is probably a pretty likely possibility, yes.
Do you believe at this point those 3 suppliers are still in the Camden, Philadelphia area?
I don't.
You said they were operating for years. Any ballpark figure, 5 years, 10 years, 15?
You know, there's a lot of change that does go on. People come in and out of prison, people get arrested on smaller buses, and people get killed. But this group in particular has been operating for a number of years in this area in Camden. And so we finally were able to dig down, get to the root of it, and get the whole thing cleaned up. But it's been years, 3, 4, 5 years, I would say.
I'm just curious, what was the party bus used for? I can guess, but well, I don't want to guess.
Yeah, my understanding is that it was a bus that was used to both deliver drugs and to some of the areas and some of the tenants that were on the street, or otherwise known as trappers, people that were selling. And there's also, I could go into a little bit more intel as to what some of the surveillance found, but I think that probably would be a little bit more detailed than I should.
So the bus was used to deliver drugs. Was it used? Did people come on the bus and use drugs on the bus, or just?
That was one of its purposes was to deliver. I'd rather not go into any more details.
When you say that everyone involved is going to be prosecuted to full extent, does that mean no plea deals for even like the street-level dealers or anything like that?
No, doesn't mean no plea deals.
Okay.
I mean, we'll take a look at everyone's culpability. We'll take a look at how to resolve these cases in a way that is certainly appropriate and fair to Camden. We are going to take a very aggressive and very strong perspective toward this, but does that mean that none of these people will not plead out? No, it doesn't. I'm sure that there will be individuals that will plead out.
And in terms of the customers, were they sort of local South Jersey region, or were they coming from far since the operation was so large?
I can tell you that there were people coming in from Pennsylvania, from the Philadelphia area. There were people that were coming in from South Jersey. I haven't tracked all the customers, but it would not surprise me in the least if people were accessing it from Central Jersey and even perhaps a little bit further north. It's a big group. Okay, folks, if there are no more questions, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it.
You can take it. Like spirit press conferences. Tons of questions.
If you have any other questions with regard to the homicides, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Good.
Thank you.
Hold on, we got questions. Sorry, just gotta let me get through. What is the latest on the situation with the woman who was stabbed as well as her daughter? We understand the man was in custody. Is this stemming from domestic violence? Was there any kind of protective orders against this man leading up to this?
It stems from domestic violence. The individual we have in custody is the boyfriend of the daughter of the individual who was killed. There was a restraining order that had been issued, but then withdrawn before it was served by the daughter of who was also a victim of the violence of this individual.
I know you can't get into all the details.
I'm sorry. Can you walk us through what happened?
He came to the home and he stabbed the mother of his girlfriend, and he also stabbed his girlfriend.
But I mean, he had broken into that, he was waiting for them to tell us.
I don't have the details as to whether he was admitted to the home or whether he entered the home without permission. I do not have those details at this time. He's being arraigned at 2:30 this afternoon. There will be a probable cause statement at that point.
Do you know if the mother was trying to protect the daughter, or she was taken by surprise?
I think that she was trying to get him to leave the house. She was the impetus initially for the daughter obtaining a restraining order because it was the mother's house.
Was he living there?
Not that I'm aware of, not at the time.
And did they have a child together? Because I know there's a child involved.
I do not know that. There was a child present in the home when this occurred, but I do not know who the father was. The daughter, the other victim, was the mother of that child.
Kristen, that's the mother of the child. The
Yes,
daughter was also stabbed.
and Ms. DeRocher is the grandmother of the child, the deceased.
Is the child a boy or a girl?
I don't know that.
Any idea of the child's age? Relative status, top very young,
3 to 4.
Young, less than 5, I believe.
Actually, in terms of the restraining order, when was it issued and when was it withdrawn? Do you have a time frame on that?
Jason have those details.
Okay, those
We
are released.
we have a copy of the restraining order, but it was issued, never served on the defendant, and was withdrawn by the victim, the daughter, prior to it being served.
One other issue, there was another body found in Camden on Sayers Avenue. What can you tell us about that situation?
Same as you just told me. We were notified of that about 11:30, a body on Sayers Avenue. And there was also a homicide last evening, about 11 o'clock last evening in the city of Camden as well, a shooting. So I don't have all the details. As you can see, it's been a very busy morning.
And to completely switch gears, the case of Dr. Martin McNeil out in Utah, convicted of killing his wife in the bathtub. A girlfriend of his gave a statement that said that McNeil at some point said that he killed his brother Rufus in Camden, that he pushed him down into a tub, that he had slit his wrists, and he sort of finished the job. And the Utah authorities are saying that they notified you guys at one point about this. What's the status of this at this point? What's happening? Are you reopening the case or looking at it?
The first notification that we got of this was Tuesday, late Tuesday. We are looking into it. Our database, we believe that this occurred in the mid-'80s. Our database at this time does not go back. That's their paper files. And we've made contact with the medical examiner's office to try and see what we're pretty sure if it was a sudden death as described, that the medical examiner's office would have done an autopsy, but we do not have any details other than that at this point. We're trying to gather the information. We're trying to see if we still have files. If this was determined to be a suicide, we may not have the file at this point in time.
I think it was a drug overdose. It was classified as a drug overdose.
As a drug overdose, we still may not have the file, but we're looking to see what we do have, and we've contacted the medical examiner's office to see what the medical examiner's office says.
Is that something that you would go after all these years?
It all depends on the circumstances, and we have to see what the cause of death was ruled by the medical examiner. That would be the first thing we would look at, and then we can go on. But as I understand it, he was convicted of first-degree murder in Utah, and it may be something that we certainly will take a further look at it. It may be something that we would reopen, or it may not, depending upon the nature of the proofs, witnesses, and everything that goes into what makes a prosecutable case. Anything else? All right. Thank you all for coming.
One other thing, Bill,